Right. So, I've been lucky enough to meet so many wrestlers over the last few years, and it's usually a really cool experience. They're normally very happy to meet fans and talk to people, and as a fan, it's something I'll always love to do, because talking to someone that I normally watch on TV, as weird as it is, it's always a moment that I'm going to remember. But as cool as it is, I find that some wrestlers are a bit disrespectful, a bit dismissive, and while I've had loads of positive experiences meeting wrestlers, in this video I'm going to talk about the bad experiences, and the wrestlers who perhaps need to think about how they treat people. And if you have any experiences that you want to share after watching this, maybe you'll have the exact same experiences as me that I had with these wrestlers. Well, let me know anyway. And yeah, let's get started. 10. John Cena. The first wrestler on this list is John Cena. I met him at a free meet and greet in somewhere like Smith's or somewhere like that. This isn't a particularly crazy story. I just thought that he was a bit dismissive. He didn't say hi, he didn't say hello, he didn't smile. He didn't really acknowledge my existence. He basically just signed whatever poster I gave him and moved on without saying a word. And I don't know, I just thought it was a bit disappointing. It could have gone a bit better. His entire job revolves around travelling the entire world, but the fact that he seemed very tired still disappointed me greatly, and I was severely let down following this meet and greet. And maybe if it was a different wrestler doing the meet and greet, it would have been a much better experience. Number 9 is Braun Strowman. This wasn't a meet and greet, I just bumped into Braun Strowman by chance when WWE came to Dublin. It was somewhere in town and I asked him for a picture. He said no. Number 8 is Steve Austin. Another wrestler I actually just bumped into by chance. It was a really short notice interaction, but I was so happy to see him because obviously he's one of the biggest names in the history of wrestling. But what made this interaction really weird was the fact that he kept saying, "I'm not Steve Austin, I'm not Steve Austin, please leave me alone." And I thought that was a really immature way of getting out with a fan interaction. Like, I get that wrestlers probably aren't always going to be in the mood to meet fans, but like, I know who you are. I watch wrestling. Stop trying to patronize me and make me feel like I'm the idiot for getting you mixed up with someone else. I didn't, you know what I mean? And to his credit, he did get the picture at me in the end, but I felt like he really took away from the moment by acting a bit childish. Number 7, Buddy Murphy. So this one was a meet and greet, but unlike when I met John Cena, Buddy Murphy was actually very receptive to the fans, and at this one, he said hello, asked everyone how they were doing, but when he signed my custom Buddy Murphy t-shirt, his handwriting was really bad, and it ruined my entire day. I took the t-shirt home, and honestly, it looked like anyone could have signed it. I still don't know what any of the letters are. It's really just a squiggle, a very lazy attempt at an autograph, and it really upset me. So, not a very pleasant experience meeting Buddy Murphy. Number 6 is Sasha Banks. So we're in Dublin Airport, it's 6 in the morning, and who do I see? Only none other than Sasha Banks. At this stage, I'm buzzing. We're in the airport, so it's fair to assume that she's probably going on holiday or some shit like that, and she's probably in a great mood. So I go up to her, I take the headphones off her head so she can hear me, and I say, "Mercedes Justine Kaestner-Varnado, can I?" And before I can even finish my sentence, she just turns to me and says, "If you say another word to me, I will kill your entire family." To say that I'm disappointed you've chosen to speak to me this morning is an understatement. I'm not just disappointed, I'm devastated. I am so utterly devastated by your decision to speak to me that it's completely ruined my entire day. Probably my entire week, if I'm being honest. Your presence isn't just unwanted, it's unbearable. I can't stand being here. I'm essentially trapped. I'm trapped in this airport, surrounded by drunken leprechauns as I wait for this flight to arrive so I can escape this cursed island. All I needed in this time was a moment of peace and quiet as I gather my thoughts and prepare for the day that lies ahead of me. But no, you wouldn't even allow that. You couldn't even allow that. Your autograph and your picture is so much more important than my mental health that you would allow me to suffer just so you can get what you want. And no, I won't sign your Eric Rowan t-shirt. It's a bad t-shirt. I just want the floor beneath me to swallow me up and send me into the black abyss so I can live for all eternity in a world of nothing. Because even the absence of life itself would be an improvement over standing here at 6 in the morning talking to you. Goodbye. I thought this was a bit unnecessary because it's not a bad shirt, it's actually one of the best shirts I've ever owned. So for that, she's at number 6. Number 5 is Chad Gable. This was another chance encounter, but unfortunately it was another one that just didn't end up going how I thought it would. I was very polite as usual. I just said, "Hey man, how are you getting on?" And he just screamed at me like, "Who the fuck are you?" And I was like, "Whoa, like, I'm just a fan. I've been a fan of yours for a while, etc, etc." And like, he just wouldn't calm down. He kept asking very like interrogation like questions, you know, like, why are you here? What do you want? How'd you get into my house? And he didn't even let me get a picture or anything like that. So overall, meeting Chad Gable was a very bad experience. Number 4 is Randy Orton. This was actually the same day I met Sasha Banks, actually. Again, I was in the airport, but I decided to go to the toilet while I was in there. And who do I see pissing in the urinal? Only none other than Randy Orton. So I was like, hey Randy, RKO, haha. It was one of those times where you want to ask them a question while you have the chance, but you don't really know what to say to them, so you end up saying the first thing that pops into your head. Anyway, he didn't acknowledge me or even say a word, which I thought was, again, quite disrespectful. I waited until he was washing his hands before politely taking a picture, which, again, he didn't say anything to. I suppose he was really just trying to keep kayfabe or whatever, but personally, I thought he could have been a bit more polite, and really, it was a very disappointing experience. Number 3 is Becky Lynch. A lot of people are going to be surprised that Becky Lynch is on this list, and honestly, I am too. You would think that Becky Lynch, of all people, would avoid this list, but no. And this one hurt the most because it happened at a convention, and these conventions are not cheap. I paid a lot of money to meet Becky Lynch, and basically here's what happened. We had our picture taken together. Now, a picture can be quite an interesting one because you never know what sort of pose to do in the picture, and I had no idea how to stand or what to go for, so I just decided to go for a hug. A nice, friendly hug, yeah? And what's the problem with that? Nothing, obviously. And after a few seconds or minutes, basically no time at all, she just turns around and says, "Excuse me, would you mind please letting me go for a second?" How fucking rude can you be to a fan who just wanted to meet their favourite wrestler? I tried to tell security what she did, and then I asked for a refund, but they just moved me on. I do have the picture, of course, but it wasn't a fun experience because Becky ruined it. Number 2 is Seth Rollins. This one actually took place in a restaurant. I was on my own eating the finest cuisine of chicken nuggets and chips that the restaurant had to offer, and as I begin to eat, I just hear this voice coming from behind me, and when I turn around, who is it? Only none other than Seth Rollins himself. I couldn't believe it. He was just sitting there eating his dinner with 2 other people who I didn't recognise from anywhere, so I just sat in front of him and said, "Hey, Colby Lopez," with a little wink just so he understood that I was on that level with him, you know? I also threw the woman's dinner on the ground that he was sitting next to because I needed room to put my chicken nuggets down. I noticed they had stopped talking for some reason, so to break this random awkward silence, I just said, "Hey Colby, who are these marks?" And he just said, "They're my family." But I assume he meant like wrestling family, obviously, and as a fan, I'm also part of the family, so just to bond with him, I picked up one of my chicken nuggets and said, "Kobe," and just threw it, you know, like a basketball, so that he'd catch it in his mouth, and it'd be like a cool thing that we did together. But it just bounced off his face and onto the floor. I was a bit upset about this because I don't like wasting food, and particularly chicken nuggets, but I let it slide because he probably had a long day, and I'm very considerate about these sort of things, you know. Anyway, he didn't say anything, but he just stood up along with the 2 marks that were sitting next to me, and they just left without saying a word. Again, I just thought this was really rude and disrespectful, and that's why he's at number 2 on this list. Number 1 is Daivari. So, the first ever wrestling show that I attended was in the National Basketball Arena in Tala. Back in 2008, I was 9 years old, and I was so fucking excited, right? Not just because it was the first wrestling show that I'll ever get to see, but also because this show was headlined by fucking Daivari. As in SmackDown vs. Raw 2007 Daivari. I was so excited that the second the show ended, I ran up to the merch table to buy a DVD off him, and when I got there, he said, "Hey buddy, what's up?" And then he looked at the Undertaker t-shirt that I was wearing, and we had a conversation about it. "Oh, you're an Undertaker fan?" "Yeah." "So you like Undertaker?" "Yeah." "I do, yeah." "Do you, yeah?" "Yeah, I do, yeah, he's pretty good." "Is he, yeah?" And then he kicked me in the ribs. It kind of hurt, so I went onto the ground, and he kicked me again, and then he said, "Undertaker, yeah? Name 5 of his albums." "Daivari, I don't think he has any albums." "If you love Undertaker so much, why don't you fucking marry him?" And then, no, Daivari was alright.